Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to our second webinar in the month of Ramadan. And this webinar is about the fiqh of zakat with our beloved Sheikh and teacher and our mentor, Dr. Sheikh Suhail Lahir. And we cannot thank enough to Sheikh Saab. He was not feeling well for a couple of months, but alhamdulillah, still he agreed to teach us this to teach us at this great workshop, inshallah. So we'll have the recitation at the beginning, and then after that we'll have the teachings from Sheikh Saab, and then after that we'll have a Q&A session. So if you have any questions regarding zakat or calculation or whatever it is, you can either text me at 501-237-7194, or you can leave the question in the chat box below in the comment box. Inshallah, we'll address your questions. So let's begin with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the ayat I have chosen today to recite are from Surah Tawbah. They basically sort of talk about zakat. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله وابن السبيل فريضة من الله والله عليم حكيم. ومنهم الذين يؤذون النبي ويقولون هو أذن قل أذن خير لكم يؤمن بالله ويؤمن للمؤمنين ورحمة للذين آمنوا منكم والذين يؤذون رسول الله لهم عذاب أليم. يحلفون بالله لكم ليرضوكم والله ورسوله أحق أن يرضوه إن كانوا مؤمنين. ألم يعلموا أنه من يحادد الله ورسوله فأن له نار جهنم خالدا فيها ذلك الخزي العظيم. يحذر المنافقون أن تنزل عليهم سورة تنبئهم بما في قلوبهم قل استهزئوا إن الله مخرج ما تحذرون. ولئن سألتهم ليقولن إنما كنا نخوض ونلعب قل أبالله وآياته ورسوله كنتم تستهزئون لا تعتذروا قد كفرتم بعد إيمانكم إن نعفو عن طائفة منكم نعذب طائفة بأنهم كانوا مجرمين. صدق الله العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Inshallah, we'll go to Sheikh Suhail Lahir, inshallah. So again, as I mentioned, that at the end of the speech, we'll have a Q&A session. If you have any questions regarding zakat, you can text me at 501-237-7194, or you can leave the question in the comment below in the chat box. Jazakumullahu khair. Let's benefit from Sheikh Saab's knowledge. Bismillah. You can start, Sheikh, now. Can you unmute yourself, Sheikh Saab?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Sheikh.
Okay, and can I share my screen?
Yes, please. We can see your screen.
Okay.
Yes.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين ورضي الله عن الصحابة المقربين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا حلالا طيبا وتوبة نصوحا. So the topic for today is the fiqh of zakat. And before I start, I ask for your patience. As some of you know, about a year ago, I had a stroke. And as a result of that, actually, my speech is still not normal. So we want to cover these topics. What is zakat? Of course, we know what it is, but just some reminder of its importance. Conditions for obligation of zakat. When is zakat due on someone? Then zakatable items. What type of things do we have to pay zakat on? And finally, the recipients of zakat. So firstly, what is zakat? As we know, it is one of the pillars of Islam. The Prophet ﷺ has said, "Buniya al-Islamu ala khamsin," that Islam is built on 5. In other words, the foundation of Islam rests upon these 5 things: Shahada, Salah, Zakat, Sawm, fasting of the Ramadan, and Hajj. But the word itself, zakat, comes from the Arabic root zakawa, all right, which has 2 meanings, at least 2 meanings. It carries the meaning of purification and the meaning of increase. So this is the meaning of zakat in the Arabic language before Islam. Then Islam came and attached a more specific meaning to zakat. Similar to Salah. Salah in Arabic before Islam means any prayer, all right, any type of prayer. But if we talk about salah in the context of Islam, then it means a specific prayer, all right? A specific prayer for which you need to be in the state of wudu, and the prayer starts with Allahu Akbar. It includes standing and ruku and sujud and so on, and it ends with taslim, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So this is a specific prayer. Similarly, if we look at the meaning of zakat in the Arabic language, purification or increase. Now, in Islamic terminology, zakat is more specific. It is not just any purification or increase, but it is the giving of money, giving of a specific proportion of your wealth to specific recipients. And the result of this is a purification and increase. It is a purification for the person giving the zakat, because it is considered a purification of what remains of his wealth. And in what way is zakat an increase? It is an increase for the person giving the zakat himself, because of the promise of Allah to repay what a person gives sincerely for the sake of Allah. So if you give zakat sincerely for the sake of Allah, then Allah will repay you, definitely on the day of judgment, right? There's a hadith that on the day of judgment, a person will see something like a mountain of charity, and he will say that, "Oh Allah, what is this? I did not give so much money, but actually this is the increase and the multiplication that Allah promised." So even though the person might have given a relatively small amount, but if it was sincere, then Allah will multiply it, and Allah will multiply the reward for it. Zakat is an increase also for other people, because it contributes to the increase and growth and well-being of the society. So the person who receives the zakat, it is definitely an increase for him, and it contributes to the growth and economic growth and well-being of the entire society. So we already mentioned that zakat is one of the pillars of Islam. It was made obligatory in the second year after Hijrah. And the word is mentioned at least 32 times in the Quran. So this shows us the importance of zakat. And of these 32 mentions in the Quran, there are more than 20 cases where zakat is mentioned along with salah. For example, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. So, and establish the salah and give the zakah. So salah is an ibadah, is an act of worship for the body. And zakah is an act of ibadah which relates primarily not to the body, but to the wealth, to your money. And both are important because Islam addresses all dimensions of the human being, the physical, the economic, the spiritual. So just as salah is essential for the spiritual health of the body, we could say that zakat is essential for the in economic health of the person and the economic health also of the society. As one of the and actually as one of the Sahaba said, "Umirna bis salati was zakah, wa man lam yuzakki fala salata lah." That we were commanded to perform salah and to give zakah. And whoever does not give zakah, of course, this is someone who on whom zakat is due, because not zakat is not due on everyone, but whoever zakat is due from, but he does not give zakah, then his salah is also not acceptable. What is the wisdom of zakat? Some quick points. It is a way to show gratitude to Allah. Right? Allah has blessed us with this wealth, and so we need to use this wealth in the service of Allah, or at least we should not use the wealth to disobey Allah. That is in general, and then we should, because Allah has commanded us to give a certain proportion of our money to the poor and needy and so on. So by fulfilling this command of Allah to give the zakat, we are showing gratitude to Allah for this money. In other words, we are spending the money, or a small percentage of the money as Allah has commanded us. Secondly, zakat helps to purify the soul from greed and selfishness. Thirdly, as we already mentioned, it is a means for eliminating poverty from the society and general economic upliftment of the community. And fourthly, it promotes the circulation of money in society. Because if your money is sitting in your bank account, it is not really benefiting you, and neither is it bringing any benefit to society. But if you spend the money, then the money is circulating, and this is good for the economy. I'm sure there are economists who could tell us more about this dimension of things. Okay. Conditions for obligation. When is zakat due? Who is zakat due on? First point is zakat is due on adult, sane, free Muslims. So as far as adult, yeah, actually there's some disagreement about this. In the Hanafi school, zakat is due only from adults. Even if a child has his own money, zakat is not due on it. But according to the Shafi'i school, if a child has his own money, then zakat is due. And if the child is too young to understand, then the parent or parents have the obligation to calculate the zakat due and to pay it out to the deserving recipients. So on the adult part of this, there is disagreement. But the other two conditions, there's not really any disagreement. Sane, in other words, if someone is insane, someone is majnoon in Arabic, that they cannot think rationally, then zakat is not due on them because they do not have enough understanding. And the third condition is not really relevant today. Free Muslim, this is as opposed to a Muslim who is a slave. And as I said, this is not really relevant today because we do not have slaves anymore. And the fourth condition is Muslim, that non-Muslims are not asked to pay zakat, even though, yeah, of course, this is a topic in Usul al-Fiqh that هل الكفار مخاطبون بفروع الشريعة? And there are some details there, but the synopsis of the discussion is that Allah sent the Prophet Muhammad for everyone, for all of mankind. Yeah, if someone does not become Muslim and does not accept the message of Islam, does it mean they are exempted from prayer and zakat and fasting and so on? What most of the scholars said is that actually Allah might, all right, if someone rejects Islam, then they could be punished in the hereafter, not just for rejecting Islam, but also for not praying, not giving zakat, and so on, right? For someone who rejects Islam. But there is general agreement among the scholars also that as far as the ahkam dunyawiyya, the worldly regulations, we do not ask non-Muslims to pay zakat. The second condition is possession of the nisab. The nisab is a specific amount, such that if you have less than the nisab, of money or assets, then you do not have to pay zakat. But if you have more than the nisab, provided the other conditions are fulfilled, then you have to pay zakat. What is the nisab amount? It varies, and we will talk more about it. There's a nisab for gold, nisab for silver, nisab for cash, and so on. But the third condition is the passage of. So basically, when your money first reaches the nisab, ideally you should have made a note of that date. And then one Islamic year, one Hijri year after that date is when the zakat is due on you for the first time. And subsequently, 1 year from basically the zakat is due every year on that date. So that graph at the bottom shows you. So when your money first reaches the nisab, 1 Hijri year from there is your due date. And on your due date, you calculate 2.5% of the total money you have on the due date. All right. So the zakat is due on your total money, not just the portion which is additional to the nisab. Is that clear? Any questions on that?
No, Sheikh Sir, we don't have any questions.
Okay. Yeah, and understand that it is a online event, so it is not easy, maybe not easy to ask questions right away. So if you have questions at the end, as Imam Nawaz said, then we can take questions at the end. Okay, so we just talked about who is zakat due on. Actually, one related point, in the Hanafi school, if, let's just say, here your money went above the nisab, what if later in the year it dips below the nisab again and then goes up again? For the Hanafi school, this does not matter as long as 1 year after this date, the money is still above the nisab. However, according to the Shafi'i school, if your money goes below the nisab, you wait until it climbs above the nisab again, and then you start counting the time again from that point. Okay. What kind of items is zakat due on? Money, all right? Whether it is cash money or the money in your bank account, gold, silver, trade goods for those who have a business, such as a store where you sell things. And by analogy, zakat is due on stocks if you have investments, also due on livestock and produce for those who are farmers, and buried treasures and minerals. So we will talk about each of these in turn in a bit. But before that, it is important to point out that zakat is not due on certain categories of possessions. So no zakat due on clothes that you wear, clothes that you have for personal use. No zakat due on a car which is for personal use. All right. No zakat due on non-gold jewelry, non-gold, non-silver jewelry that is for personal use. All right. So platinum jewelry, diamond jewelry, as long as there's no gold or silver, no zakat due on it. What about it if it is gold or silver jewelry? We will get to that. There's some disagreement among the fuqaha. No zakat due on your own residential home. So if you own your home, there is no zakat due on the value of the home. No zakat due on your household furniture. No zakat due on the tools of your trade. For example, if you are a carpenter, then no zakat due on your electric saw and your hammer and your lathe and so on. No zakat due on books for the scholar and student. Okay, so all of these categories on which zakat is not due, you do not add those to your assets for the purposes of calculating the zakat which is due. Okay, gold and silver. The nisab for gold is mentioned in the hadiths as 20 mithqal, which in today's terms is 2.81 troy ounces. Yeah. The last I checked, which was October of last year, this comes to, the nisab for gold came to about $5,000. I did not get a chance to check today. Maybe someone wants to check the price of gold per troy ounce and multiply that by 2.81 if someone of the attendees wants to volunteer and then tell us at the end. And similarly, you could, the nisab for silver is in the hadith as 200 dirhams. In today's terms, that is about 19.69 troy ounce. And again, the last I checked in a few months ago, that the nisab for silver comes to about $450. So if you have actual gold, gold coins or gold bars or gold certificates, which represent your ownership of the gold, even though the gold is sitting in a bank vault or sitting with the company from which you bought the gold, but you'd only have these certificates. Regardless, in all these cases, if if the amount is more than 2.81 troy ounces, then zakat is due on it at 2.5% annually. Similarly, if you have more than 19.69 troy ounces of silver, whether it is silver coins, pure silver coins, or silver bars or silver certificates, then zakat is due on it at 2.5% annually. The nisab for silver is the same amount you use for the nisab for cash. All right. So assuming that the nisab for silver is still about $450, then if we look at your cash, if you have had more than this amount, $450 in cash, for more than one Islamic year, then the zakat is now due on your cash. All right, this is in the Hanafi school. In the Shafi'i school, for cash, you use the nisab for gold. All right, so if you are Shafi'i and your cash savings are, let's say, $2,000, then as a Shafi'i, zakat is not due on your cash. But if you are Hanafi, then the zakat would have been due on it. All right. Of course, in the Prophet's time, they did not have cash like we have. Their currency was gold and silver. So now that we have cash as the primary currency, the question is, do you apply the nisab for gold or the nisab for silver? According to the Shafi'is, you apply the nisab for gold because this is certain. Actually, you apply the higher of the two amounts because they took the view that you cannot definitely say that zakat is due unless you are looking at the higher of the two amounts. Whereas the Hanafis took a view of precaution, that if we have two amounts, then if you take the smaller amount for the nisab, then you can be safe. All right, you have definitely discharged your obligation, and if on the day of judgment it turns out that actually zakat was not due, if you have, let's say, just $1,000 in savings, then there is no harm that has been done. You still have gotten the reward of the optional charity, sadaqah. So according to the Hanafis, you use the amount of the nisab for silver, for cash, and similarly for trade goods. Whereas for the Shafi'is, you use the value of the nisab of gold. Okay, another thing, actually, what if you have gold which is less than the nisab, silver which is less than the nisab, and cash which is also less than the nisab. But when you add all these quantities together, it comes to more than the nisab. In that case, actually, you are responsible for adding all the different types of wealth, and therefore zakat will be due on you, even though if you look at each individual commodity, zakat would not be due on the individual commodity. But nevertheless, if the combined amount is more than this nisab of silver for the Hanafis or gold for the Shafis, then zakat would be due at 2.5% on the combined assets. A few more points about money. Money you lent to others, you are responsible for paying zakat on it, because technically it is still your money. The only exception, if the borrower defaulted, in other words, you have lost hope of ever receiving repayment from the borrower. In that case, you do not need to pay zakat, because the money is now lost. But what if the bad debt is then recovered? In other words, you lost hope of the person paying back the money, but actually he surprised you. Years later, he actually repaid the money. What do you do in this case? According to the Hanafi school, you are responsible at that point to pay 1 year of zakat and not all the previous years. Okay, how about money you have borrowed from others? In the Hanafi school, personal debts are deductible before you calculate your zakat, provided they are due, right? So if you were supposed to pay back the money you borrowed last month, but you have not yet paid it back, so let's say you borrowed $1,000 from someone and you were supposed to pay it back last month. So according to the Hanafis, let's say you are supposed to pay back last month, but today is your due date for zakat, so you are calculating the zakat which is due on your money. According to the Hanafi school, let's say if you have $5,000 in your bank account, and of that, there is $1,000 that you should have paid back to the person you borrowed from. Is zakat due on the full 5,000 or on 5,000 less the 1,000 which you have to pay back? Yes, in the Hanafi school, you are entitled to deduct that 1,000. So you will pay zakat not on the 5,000, but on the 4,000. According to the Shafis, no, you have to pay on the full amount, because even though this $1,000 you borrowed, the Shafi perspective is you should have paid it back before you come to calculate your zakat. If you are still holding on to that money at the time of zakat calculation, then you have to pay zakat on it. A related question, of course, nowadays a lot of people have long-term debts, a mortgage on the house or a car loan. There is some disagreement on this. but there is general agreement that you are not allowed to deduct the full amount of the mortgage that you owe, or the amount you owe on the car loan. You are not entitled to deduct the full amount from your assets before calculating your zakat. Otherwise, most people would, even well-off people, would not be paying any zakat, which would be an injustice to the poor and needy, right? So if, for example, a person has $100,000 in savings or investments, and then he still owes 300,000 on his house, then does it make sense that this person is not responsible to pay any zakat? No, of course not. He is well off, right? He has money in excess of his needs. So in terms of mortgage and car loan and so on, long-term debts, you can only deduct the current month's payment. All right. As I said, there is some disagreement. Some fuqaha allow you to deduct 2 or 3 months of payment, and maybe some even more than that. But as I said, there is general agreement that you cannot deduct the full amount. And as I said, the opinion which I advise you to follow is you only deduct the current month's due payment before you calculate your zakat. Jewelry, gold and silver jewelry, if it is more than 12 carat, then zakat is due on it according to the Hanafi school and the Zaydi school. But according to the others, Shafi'i, Maliki, Hanbali, Ja'fari, zakat is not due on it. If it is gold made from other than gold and silver, as we said, diamond, platinum, and so on, then there is general agreement among the all the madhahib that zakat is not due on it. However, if you bought gold or silver jewelry as an investment, not for personal use, then everyone agrees that zakat is due on it. And similarly, even if you bought platinum jewelry or diamonds or any other type of jewelry as an investment, then also zakat is due on it. Trade goods, those who have a shop, for example, where they are selling things, zakat is due at 2.5% on all trade goods, including raw materials. For example, if you have a factory, or if you have a restaurant, you could say the raw materials are the ingredients which you will use. The ingredients you have already bought, which you will use to make the food. So 2.5% of all trade goods, including raw materials, if their value reaches the Nisab. Machinery, land, fixtures, and fittings are exempt. So, yeah, 2.5% of the trade goods, yeah, if you have a shop, then this is the merchandise which is in stock, which you currently have and which you have not yet sold. Do you pay zakat on the cost value of this merchandise, or on the value at which you will sell it? Actually, what is required is only to pay zakat on the cost value of the merchandise. If you want to pay more than that, you can, but that is what is required. Shares and stocks, 2.5% of the income from the investment if the company deals with land and immovable property, in other words, real estate. But if the intention is to resell eventually, then 2% of the total value, even if it is real estate. Yeah. And similarly, for non-real estate investments, 2.5% of the total value, meaning the current share price plus the income. All right. So yeah, basically the total value of the shares right now. So if you have an investment account or IRA or so on, they send you a statement, an annual statement, or more than once a year, and using that statement, you can find the total value of your investment account. So 2.5% of that is due. How about retirement accounts, 401k, and so on? There is difference of opinion among contemporary fuqaha about this. Is it zakatable every year, even from now, or is it subject to zakat only after you withdraw it? There are different opinions and other opinions besides these two. Actually, the opinion I advise to follow is that zakat is due on it every year. Okay. Who can zakat be paid to? Actually, before that, important point is that the zakat needs to be paid with intention, that this is for the fard of zakat. Just as if you enter the masjid and you pray 2 rak'ah tahiyatul masjid at the time of Fajr, and then let's just say your cell phone rings and there is an emergency, you need to leave before they call the iqamah for Fajr. Can you say that I will count the 2 rak'ah tahiyatul masjid as my Fajr prayer? No, of course you cannot, because the intention for that was the intention of sunnah, of tahiyatul masjid. So a sunnah intention cannot discharge the obligation of fard. Similarly, if you gave charity without specifying that this is zakat, then you cannot retroactively count that towards your zakat. So at the moment of signing the check or writing out the check, or at the moment of handing over the money to the person, or at the moment of um, 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 clicking the make payment, if you are making the payment online. At that moment, you should intend that this is this payment is zakat to either a full payment or partial payment of the fard of zakat, which is I owe as an obligation to Allah. Okay. Who can zakat be paid to? There are the 8 categories who are mentioned in the verse of Surah At-Tawbah, which Imam Nawaz beautifully recited for us just a little while ago. So these 8 categories are the poor and the needy. What is the difference between them? Basically, yeah, one is those who have some money but not enough for their needs, and the other is those who have no money at all. All right. Fuqara and masakin, which is the faqir and which is the miskin. Actually, the Hanafis and Shafi'is disagree on that, but yeah, as to which of those is the faqir and which is the miskin. But in any case, thirdly, the zakat workers. So in the Islamic, if there's an Islamic government, then the government will appoint people to go around and collect zakat from people, and the payment for those employees, zakat employees, can come from the zakat, from a percentage of the zakat. But most of the zakat needs to go to the other categories. Otherwise, we are defeating the purpose, right? If most of the zakat is going to the zakat workers, then there's something wrong. Nowadays, at least in our context, where the government is not a Muslim government and not doing this, then if there are Muslim organizations in the West, for example, relief organizations who collect the zakat from the Muslims and distribute it to the poor and needy and so on, then are they allowed to pay some of the salary of their workers from the zakat? Actually, there's this disagreement among the fuqaha. Some said yes, some said no. Fourthly is those whose hearts are to be reconciled. This is does not this, according to the Hanafis, was only during the lifetime of the Prophet, but according to most of the other scholars, this is still applicable, and it includes recent Muslim converts. As we know, Muslim converts are sometimes cut off by their family, and so they may be needy. It includes also people who are interested in Islam, but maybe need some economic motivation, some financial motivation uh, um, 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 to um, um, help them make their decision. Uh, According to some fuqaha, it includes also non-Muslims um, um, who, if we pay them some money, then they will refrain from causing harm to the Muslims. Fifthly, freeing slaves. All right. Again, I think not relevant today. Yeah, although there, we hear reports of people like ISIS and other groups enslaving people. So I guess if the only way to free such people is to pay money, then I guess that would still be applicable. Those in legitimate debt, right? Those who borrowed money for a legitimate reason, and they are now unable to repay, they can receive zakat. Seventh, in the path of Allah, which according to most fuqaha refers to the mujahideen, and we by mujahideen we do not mean terrorists, right? If you give zakat to help in terrorist actions, then you are sinning, all right? But if there is a legitimate war, right, and a legitimate war um, um, is normally declared by a legitimate Muslim government, or it is a legitimate act of self-defense. And of course, living in this country, I would advise you to also be cognizant of the laws of this country and not break the laws of this country. Okay, and lastly, the wayfarer is someone who has money, but they are currently unable to access that money. So, for example, someone is away from home and he has money at home, but he needs money right now, but he cannot access his money at home. Actually, this is rare nowadays because of credit cards and debit cards and wire transfers, but it could still arise, for example, for refugees, right? Maybe they have cash in the place they fled from, but they have no way of getting that cash, and they have emigrated to another country, and they have basic needs for food and rent and so on. Okay. So regarding payment, you cannot give zakat to someone who is well off. And the way a number of fuqaha defined this is if someone has assets or money equivalent or more to the Nisab, then they are not deserving of zakat. Also, you cannot pay zakat to your parents, your wife, your children. You cannot pay zakat to your employee. You cannot pay zakat to non-Muslims. All right, zakat is taken only from Muslims and paid only to Muslims. So this is zakat. But other forms of charities, such as sadaqah, voluntary charity, can be given to non-Muslims. Zakat also cannot be given to Banu Hashim, all right, the descendants of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And according to most fuqaha, zakat cannot be paid to an institution. It needs to be given to an individual who is in one of the 8 categories. There are some contemporary fuqaha who allow the payment of zakat to masjids and Islamic institutions in non-Muslim countries. So I personally am not convinced with this view. So if you come to me, I would not advise you to follow that view. But if you trust the knowledge and piety of the fuqaha who have given that view, then it is up to you whether to follow it. It is generally disliked to send zakat to another country unless there is a greater need there, or you are sending to relatives. Of course, these relatives cannot be your parents, children, or wife, but if you have a cousin or uncle who is poor or needy, then you could give some of your zakat to him. Actually, for the Hanafi school, you can give zakat to any of these 8. Actually, for the Hanafis, it is 7 categories, and you can give it to just one category out of these, or more than one, or all. According to the Shafi'is, you have to divide up your zakat equally across these 8 categories. And according to the Malikis, you give to whoever is in most need. Okay. Produce, I don't think this applies to most of us, but if you have, actually, even if you have your own private garden, which is not a farm, according to the Hanafi school, actually, zakat is due on the produce. All right. If it is rain irrigated, 10% is due. So if you harvested, let's just say 10 tomatoes from your garden, then let's say 10 tomatoes, 2.5% of that would be the value of, you calculate the value of your yield from your garden, and 2.5% of that is due. So according to the Hanafis, there is no nisab for produce. But according to the majority, there's a nisab. Yeah, and the percentage due if it is rain irrigated, that is, yes, sorry, I said 2.5% now, that is not right. If it is rain irrigated, it is 10%, not 2.5%. If it is manually irrigated, meaning if you actually water it with your own watering can or hose or irrigation equipment, then the zakat due is 5% rather than 10%. If you have a harvest of honey, if you keep bees, then according to some madahib, 10% of your honey yield is due, and zakat. If you have free grazing livestock, cows, camels, goats, sheep, or buffaloes, if they are free grazing and you keep them for milk, breeding, or fattening, there is zakat due on them, and we don't have time to discuss the details. There are a lot of details for that. But if you have animals which you keep for working on your farm, for example, then zakat is not due on those. Ancient buried treasure, meltable minerals, non-meltable minerals, I think I will not talk about that. You can read the details on this slide, but we want to give some time for questions.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykhana, barakallahu feekum. It's a lot of information there. Alhamdulillah. So we had a couple of questions that you already covered in your presentation, such as the retirement, 401k, and others. But one question we had is from one of our brother. He says that his wife is non-Muslim and they share bank account. So in that case, how can he calculate the zakat?
Okay. If it is a joint bank account, then I would presume yeah, you can probably assume that 50% of the money is yours. And so you pay zakat on 50%. But another thing you could do is to talk to your wife and say that even if she is non-Muslim, I'm sure she does not object to the concept of charity. So if you can speak to her and say that, all right, the total money we have in the account, I want to pay 2.5% of the total amount once a year to the poor and needy. All right, if you can get her to agree to that, then that would be preferable.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykhna. The second question we have is how to pay zakat on properties. Like nowadays, many people, I think what he meant is many people are purchasing properties as an assets, so as savings. So yes. How do they pay zakat on it?
Good question. So as we already said, if you own your house, then no zakat due on it, even if you have paid it off completely, no zakat due on it. But if you buy other properties for investment, then it depends. If you buy another house and your intention is to rent that house out and to get income from the rent, then no zakat is due on the value of that house. But the income which you get from the rent, this would be added to your total assets, and you will probably end up paying zakat on some of that money. Another case is if you buy a house or real estate with the intention of reselling it when the market goes up, then in that case, this is considered trade merchandise. So you should pay zakat on the full value of that house or that property. All right, assuming you have paid it off completely. If you have not yet paid it off completely, then you will pay zakat on the percentage which you have already paid off.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykhna. So that leads us to another question, Shaykh. Many people, what they do is they have properties, like 4 or 5 properties, and they rent it out, and whatever the earning, whatever the income comes from those properties, they utilize it for their daily expenses, such as the grocery and the fees and utilities, all of that. So how do they calculate zakat on the rent then?
Yeah, that is fine. Actually, the zakat is not actually due on the rent itself, but whatever you save from the rent. So if you are using the rent for your daily expenses, that's fine. But whatever you save from that rent will go into your bank account, and then when the due date for your zakat comes, then you are only responsible for looking at your total cash and other assets.
Yes, Sheikh. It's my question, Sheikh. I'm sorry, I'm taking your time, but how can we justify? I've had this question as an imam many times. There are people come and ask that if a person has a gold, the 7.5 tola, so that is like around $5,000. So he's obliged for zakat. And the person who has 4 properties that are worth of $500,000, and still just because he's getting rent from it and then he's sustaining on it, then he's not eligible for zakat. How do we justify that?
Okay, you could say that actually one way to approach it is you could say that actually if you have gold or silver, this is not doing any good to the society. The society is not getting any benefit from it. So you should actually calculate the 2.5% and pay that money for the benefit of the society. But if the person uses his money to buy the property which is renting out, then actually society is getting some benefit already from that, right? Because people have a place but the people who are renting have getting the benefit of having a place to stay. So he's indirectly providing a service to the society.
Yes.
And actually, because he's providing the service, that money he's put into the property is not directly available to him.
Okay, Sheikh. That makes sense. Jazakallah khair. The last question we have is,
Actually,
yes,
there are some fuqaha, um, um, some Egyptian Hanafi fuqaha who say that actually he should pay zakat on the value of the property.
okay, sure. So even if it's the, sometimes people do have lands, they just, purchase, they don't have an intention of selling, nor they're earning any incomes from that. So just as a savings, they purchase empty lands that is not beneficial or not any service to the community. In that case, do they pay zakat?
If they have the intention to resell it sometime in the future, then yes.
How about if they don't have any intentions at all? They're just making investment savings for their generation, for their families.
I don't think so. At least according to, actually, as I said, according to some Egyptian Hanafi fuqaha, you pay zakat on land or property in all cases except the house you're actually living in. But according to the Indo-Pakistani Hanafis, you don't pay zakat unless you have the intention to resell it.
Okay, Sheikh. Barakallahu feekum. So the last question is, Sheikh, you mentioned about the freeing slaves. You can pay zakat for freeing slaves. So in that case, can we use that category for what it says? It's for, some people are in prison for very little crime. And if they pay a certain amount, they can be freed. So can we use zakat for that, to free some of the prisoners, inmates? We had that request a couple of months ago. The brother had been coming to masjid. We know the brother personally, but for some little crime, or he was jailed for 6-7 years, something. But if he pays something or something like that, so can we utilize zakat for that reason?
That's a good question. I would need to think about it. So I don't know offhand. Let me think about it and try to check if already there might be some fuqaha who already have addressed it. Let me check and get back to you. Inshallah, I will email you the answer, and then you can convey it to other people who are interested.
Inshallah, Sheikh. The last thing, Sheikh, can you please tell us what is the fitrah amount this year, and when should they pay off before?
The amount, actually, I have not looked into it this year, but last year it was about $10. Some fuqaha estimated it a bit higher to $12 or $15. But yeah, I'm not sure. It may have gone up because I think as a result of the pandemic, there has been some inflation. So it might be more than $10. Let me check on that. And again, I will email you with the answer. But in terms of when to pay it out, for the Hanafis, you can pay it in advance. All right, you can pay it now even. Let's see, according to the Shafi'is, I don't remember the details. The Shafi'is have a more restrictive view, but if I remember correctly, they allow paying it a few days before Eid. But according to the Hanafi school, you could even pay it now, any time from the beginning of Ramadan.
Barakallahu feekum, Sheikh. One last thing I'll just ask you, and then we'll conclude. As you know, nowadays many people are not really familiar with the madhahib, ahnaf and shawafi and the adillah and all of that. So what do you suggest them? What do you suggest them to follow? Like, how do you make them understand? Like, what should they follow? What should they understand?
Okay, if you do not have a madhab, that is fine. So as far as the information I presented, actually I consider myself Hanafi. So the information I presented, you could say has a Hanafi bias. I talked more about the Hanafi side of things. So if you don't have a madhab and you follow what I mentioned in this presentation about the Hanafi view, then that is the easy solution. Yeah.
Inshallah. Barakallahu fikum, Sheikhna. Inshallah. Thank you so much, Sheikh. We know you've had difficulty in speech. May Allah Ta'ala grant you quick recovery, inshallah. May Allah Ta'ala keep you and your family always healthy and wealthy, and may Allah protect you and your family from all the evils and evil eyes, and may Allah Ta'ala give barakah and blessings and accept your service to the ummah, and Allah is to benefit from your knowledge, inshallah. So inshallah, we'll see you all next week at the same time on Saturday with another webinar about the first Muslim intellectual thinker and the door to the city of knowledge, Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib. So with Dr. Sheikh Muhammad bin Yahya Nainawi, our webinar will be same time on Saturday at 2 p.m. Inshallah, we'll see you there again. I'd like to request our Sheikh, please conclude our program with the dua, inshallah.
Jazakallah khairan. And let me also thank you before the dua. Thank you, Imam Nawaz and the team. I know the video. You have I think a sister who is doing the video and the
Michelle. Yes.
Jazakumullahu khairan, and may Allah bless all of you and the Muslim community there in Arkansas. So we will conclude with the dua for kafaratul majlis. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.
جزاك الله خيرا. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.